everyone, this video is a VR to a Halloweeny tag called Deck for Witchy Desires, hashtag Halloween Countdown. And this is from Krista over at Auntie K's Tarot. I will leave a link to her video, of course. Now, I know I'm running against the clock here, but I've still got time for this. It's not Halloween yet. I've seen a VR, I think a couple VRs. I want to say one from Laura at Aquamarine 18, and then maybe one from Clementia. Clementia's Creative Cartomancy. Anyway, if I can find them, I will. If I'm correct, I will link those as well. In any case, we have 13 prompts, and it's a pretty self-explanatory tag. As we go along, you'll kind of get the hang of it. So why don't we just go ahead and get started? I might veer away from maybe the original intention of particular prompts, but I figure I'm just gonna go with it because I'm sure Krista will not give a shit, and neither will anybody else. So just gonna, do it my way. So number one, the first prompt, my familiar deck. And so I have interpreted this to mean like in terms of like an animal familiar. And I have chosen for this deck the Grimalkin's Curious Cats Tarot. And obviously I am a cat lover. And while I am not necessarily, I really should stop saying that actually. I've said a whole hell of a lot that like I'm not big on animal decks, but damn, I sure have more than I thought I would for somebody who doesn't seem to gravitate toward them. So anyway, cats. This is a deck that honestly I haven't used for myself. I've only used it for a friend to give him his monthly readings because he loves cats, new to tarot, and so just kind of wetting his whistle with this really cute cat deck. I have another cat deck that I used with him, actually two others, but I don't know, I just wanted something else. So this is what I went with, and I really like it. I like that the cats aren't like super anthropomorphized. They are acting, pretty much like cats would act. So I love the bright colors, and I really do enjoy MJ Culline's art style. So this whole kind of, collage style that she does. That's really funny. But yeah, and we've got a tuxedo cat. Thank you very much. Thank you. Number two, my jack-o'-lantern deck, which is a deck that's eerily or creatively illuminating. Now for this one, I went with this deck, which is my JBG Oracle. I call it my Strangeling Oracle, but Strangeling is copywritten, so I've renamed it, but that's just kind of like my personal name for it. So this is a deck that I created using public domain imagery from Jasmine Beckett Griffith. And the reason I chose this, the first thing that came to mind with that prompt and the idea of a deck being creatively illuminating, it was more, I thought of this deck because it was more like the process of it, not necessarily that the deck itself is eerily or creatively illuminating. It certainly is a great deck, and for someone who doesn't use Oracle a lot, this is obviously one of my go-tos because I made it specifically for myself. So, but the focus for me of this prompt is more that, like, while I was creating the deck, it did feel kind of creatively illuminating, just in terms of going through that process of selecting the images that really resonated with me, coming up with the keywords that came to me as I was looking at the images. And so for me, and just in general, the process of like deck creating in itself, you know, I knew I wanted it to be this square shape in this dimension. Okay, how am I going to work to format it such that it will work to those specifications? So yeah, just furthering along my kind of deck creating experimentation. But this will always be like a kindred deck for me because I made it myself. Number 3, my Broom deck helps me fly, get where I'm going. And I chose the Blythe Tarot for this one because this is a deck that it just is great for kind of those quick and dirty readings that I want to do, you know, just on the fly. I don't want to spend too much time. I just want a pithy answer and then to get on with my day. And so this is a deck that is great for those types of quick readings or quick questions. There's just such a, I don't know, like a whimsy and a levity to this deck. And I realize some people might find the dolls in this deck to be on the creepy side, which, you know, fair enough, but I am a Blythe doll collector, so that's where the name comes from, for those of you who are not familiar with this type of doll. But in any case, so it brings me joy in that respect, and it is pretty much a Rider-Waite clone. So yeah, I know these images, you know, and I think that further helps to facilitate a quick and dirty reading, just because these images are just so familiar to me from, you know, Pixie's work. So this has become one of my ride or die decks in a very short time. The next prompt is cleans out the cobwebs. So this is a deck that is meant to get you really thinking, you know, get the gears going. And so for this one, I chose the Tarot Siren because, good grief, just Marseille, anything frickin' Marseille is definitely going to make me use my brain cells with way more exertion than I would RWS or perhaps other pip style decks. Now, for those of you who may not know, I did, for like the first half of the year, do a Marseille study. It's like Marseille study part 2, because I had studied Marseille in a previous year. And so this deck is what I used this time around for part 2 of my studies. And I decided to go ahead and write on this deck, write the different key phrases, keywords that I might not be too familiar with, or that might resonate particularly. Yeah, Marseille is just, it's a challenge, more more in the respect that like these pips, man, I just, when you lay them all out, it's like gobbledygook sometimes, you know. For a second there, I really do have to make more of a concerted effort to figure out what incarnation I'm looking at. But I will say that, you know, after doing this round, I am more comfortable. Will I ever get to be completely efficient or feel really like super comfortable as I am with, say, you know, RWS? I don't know. I'm inclined not to think so, but that's okay. Number 5 is the Cauldron deck. Helps stir up magic. So again, my answer for this prompt might deviate from the original intention, but my choice is the Shadowscapes Tarot, and this is the Czech version, and this is actually not the version that I have that I've used in the past in response to this prompt, but close enough. So basically I had the English version, and I mean, I just had a lot of trouble with it because the images are just so detailed, and my old eyes just did not know what to do with that. So what I had decided to do for a time with the English version is, instead of using it for a tarot deck in which I did readings with, I decided to use it for my intention work. I decided to, or, you know, I guess you could call it spell work, you know, intention setting work, ritual work. My main tools are tarot, paper, and fire. And so I would use this deck. I would make an intentional pull of a card, a specific card, in line with the work that I was trying to do, whatever I was trying to manifest, and make that a part of the working. So in that way, that's how this deck helped with, you know, stirring up magic, if you will. Now, I decided to get the Czech version in hope that I, you know, would have a better time an easier time in using this deck to actually read with. And so, and I do think it makes a difference. It being just a little larger, and the kind of the gloss of the cardstock making the images pop just a little more. I think it does make a difference, but I do intend to use this deck again if I'm called to do that kind of like ritual work or intention setting that would call for maybe using a tarot deck. The next prompt is Honoring, Remembrance, or Quiet deck. And so for this one, I chose the Magical Tarot. This is from a Scratch and Reveal activity book. Please do not buy the book. Please do not engage in this activity. It is not worth it. And it is not on my hands if you decide to get this and find that it is not a fun or easy activity for you. But let me explain. So the way in which this deck applies to this prompt for me is not honoring and remembrance in terms of, say, ancestors, but actually my beloved cat, Juju. I lost her a few years ago, and that really affected me way more than I thought it would. I felt that loss very deeply, and for longer than I had anticipated. And so shortly after she passed, I received this deck as a gift. And this turned out to be the perfect distraction from the kind of grief and the mourning of, you know, a being that I considered like a best friend, you know. And so this was just, it was laborious for sure. And it was just kind of, it was the perfect, honestly, the perfect distraction, the perfect activity to get my mind off of feeling so sad. And yeah, so this took a long, actually, it didn't take a long time, because I really just worked on it a little bit every day, and before I knew it, it was done. But yeah, whenever I see this deck, I do think of her. Next one is Flat Out Witchy / Halloweeny deck. And my choice for this one is another one of mine called the Spoopy Lenormand. And I do hope that it is maybe self-explanatory why I chose this one. I had such a great time making this deck. I made this, I want to say, was it 2020? Time flies, but I wanted like a Halloweeny deck or a Halloweeny Lenormand, and there were a couple that I had considered, and one that I even bought but then rehomed because I just couldn't get on with it. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just make my own. And that is what I did. Now, I will confess, because I have been dedicating this year to Marseille and Thoth, I haven't really used Lenormand all that much this year. I've used it like a little bit here and there, but really not as much as I have in the past. So this one actually did not get used for this Halloweeny season. But I am one that isn't restrained to the holiday to use decks like this. I will use this deck whenever the hell I want, so it's never too late, never too early. The next one, number 8, Sweet Treat deck. So my choice for this prompt is a deck that I haven't used yet. I've been meaning to, but alas, it has not happened yet. And this is Way of the Panda Tarot. This was a lovely and generous gift from Tina of Queen of Wands. She is a deck creator, and she was rehoming some decks, and she asked if I was interested in trying this one out. And so I said yes, because honestly, like, this is just such an adorable deck. And I had been tempted before. I had resisted, but given the chance now, I mean, why not? So as a kid, my top 3 favorite animals growing up were elephant, dolphin, and bears, specifically the panda bear. So I have an affinity to this animal. And it's just so freaking cute. So adorable. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how I get along with this one. I have a feeling that next year when it's time for me to do the Eerily, the year ahead spread for my friend, I do this for her every year. She will want this deck. I'm gonna use this deck for her because she loves pandas. So it's just, it's really just darling. You know, even, oh gosh, yeah, even a card like this. Wow. Number 9 is the Ugly Cozy Sweater deck. And okay, look, y'all, don't come for me. You know how I feel about this deck if you've watched our 3 Girls, 1 Deck episode. This deck, okay, look, I don't think they're ugly, okay? I don't think they're ugly. I just think they're a little weird looking. They're a little funny looking, and I, all the same, I have grown a kindness towards these characters in this deck. And yeah, even though, you know, they are interesting, the deck is really a wonderful, earthy, grounded deck that makes me feel like there's no intimidation or fear when I come to this deck. You know, this is not necessarily a confronting deck for me. It is one that I can come to, like, even if I've had some time away from this deck, I feel like it is one I could come back to and just easily reconnect and use it and get the answers and messages I need from the readings. So, you know, while like the art style is not my cuppa, it's all the same a really good deck. It's a really good deck. Next prompt is Worth a Cackle, and my choice is the Masters of the Universe Tarot. I just love this deck so effing much. This is, I think, an apropos choice because, I mean, if you've watched He-Man or She-Ra, a lot of these characters are pretty hilarious. A lot of the situations that they get into are pretty hilarious. Especially the villains. Oh my goodness. So good. So good. I did just in the last few months watch is it like Masters of the Universe Revelations? I don't know. It was produced by Kevin Smith. It's a kind of revamp of He-Man, and I wasn't sure what to expect, and I ended up really liking it. So if there was a way they could bring back She-Ra, I would be just beside myself with joy, but I don't know if that's going to happen. In any case, Catra, Skeletor, I mean, this dude was funny. Super funny. And Bo was also funny. Next prompt, Confronting Fear deck. Okay, so again, this is, my answer is not, it kind of deviates a little bit in that my choice is not a deck that I necessarily use. Well, I don't. So I don't use this deck to confront fear. Any of my decks I could use for that purpose. I don't typically categorize my decks like that, if that makes sense. But I came to this prompt from the lens of confronting the, I would say fear is too strong a word, but more like intimidation of actually learning this deck, and that is the Fothy Thoth Tarot. And, you know, I just heard so many people talk about how, like, complex this deck was, and there's just, you know, so much occultism and the different, you know, aspects like the Kabbalah and, you know, the astrology and whatnot, and that it's a hard deck to learn, and et cetera, et cetera. And so in the beginning, you know, when I was first starting to get back into tarot, I had no interest in learning this deck, and especially after hearing, you know, so many people say that. But then I also ran across channels that really spoke up for this deck and kind of dispelled the idea that this deck is so vastly different in terms of its meanings, if you will, from, say, the RWS or the Marseille. And so I approached this deck this year with the idea that I think that, you know, with anything, you can go as deep as you want. You can study as hard or as little as you want. And so my kind of strategy with this deck was that I was just going to learn it with more of a high level view, you know, bird's eye view. I wasn't interested in getting into the Kabbalah. I just wanted to dip my toes, if you will, and that is what I did. And actually, just today, I kind of finished what I would consider to be like my formal kind of reading of the Thoth and getting to know each of the cards, because I've been using a couple books. And so, yeah, I've gone through all the cards, and so now it's just about my, you know, doing some readings with it, which I have already, but yeah, it's not intimidating. I agree, it is not different from RWS. You know, I mean, yeah, it's a different flavor in one respect, but I can see the parallels, you know. So I'm glad that I'm glad that I didn't let the deck intimidate me, because yeah, I feel like I'm all the better for it in terms of, you know, seeing some of the references in other decks that I might have that have, you know, more of a thothy flavor. And also I'm going to do an honorable mention here, which is that the Millennium Thoth is the one that I've been using to do readings, not the OG. But this is, oopsies, this is essentially like a clone, but more modernized with, you know, digital art. So you guys know how I feel about this deck if you've seen me talk about it before. I'm in love with it. And what I've decided to do was actually write the keywords because I am learning. And then, you know, if I no longer want them on there, I can always just remove them. It's not going to be a problem. The next prompt is a deck that you saved up for. And I honestly don't have any decks that I could say that I saved up for. Yeah, I don't. So I'm going to kind of amend this to be a deck that I had to work for. And that would be the Dream Vision Tarot. So the story behind this is that a tarot friend and I decided to do a self-imposed challenge together. This was more towards the beginning of the year. And we agreed that if we succeeded in this challenge, then we would gift the other this deck, this same deck. I know that sounds silly, but so this was a challenge in which there, would be reward or, consequences, which is that like you either have worked hard enough to earn the deck or you don't. So I think both of us had to, both of us had to be successful in order to reward each other with these decks. I can't remember for sure, but in any case, I was able to successfully, successfully adhere to the challenge guidelines. And so I received this as my reward. And it really is a beautiful deck. It's just so, to me, it's just so extraterrestrial. And I love that. I love that about this deck. The final prompt is Colourful Foliage. And for this one, I had a little bit of trouble in that I have decks that certainly have like the autumn vibe and autumn colors, but I wouldn't say like autumn foliage. I have decks that are of like more like spring summer foliage. So I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too hard about this, but the best deck I could come up with is the Antique Anatomy Tarot. And actually this was featured in our most recent Three Girls video, so do check that out. This was Sarah's selection. And I guess, I don't know, why would I think this is like autumnal, colorful foliage? I mean, certainly the flowers are pretty vibrant, and I don't know, maybe I'm reaching here, but like against this kind of sepia toned, what's I guess supposed to emulate that kind of antique-y parchment type of paper. This kind of maybe fits. I don't know. It is a beautiful deck. If you want to hear how I feel about this deck, certainly, once again, check out that Three Girls installment. But it's a great pip deck. It's one that I've struggled with because, well, cardstock was difficult to work with. But it's just aesthetically, it's beautifully composed. The some of the medical instruments, it's really interesting because you have the colorful flowers, but then you have like these kind of cold medical instruments. So that's a certain kind of vibe for sure. But since I have broken this deck in through my very jacked up method, I am now able to shuffle this deck where I was not able to before. So I am just thrilled with that. So maybe I will be able to work with this deck more and connect with it more now that I'm able to actually shuffle it and have a better handle on the deck, if you will. That is it for this tag. I hope that you enjoyed. It is not too late to chime in with your own VR on your social media platform of choice, or you can leave comments down below giving me some of your particular selections for these prompts. do let me know. And until the next time, much love and take care.